Warning disclaimer, this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I used to believe that the worst kind of pain comes from losing someone you love. I was wrong. The worst kind of pain comes from realizing the person you thought you knew, the one who kissed you goodbye every morning, who reached for your hand during movies, who whispered, "It's always been you," on your wedding night, was someone you never really knew at all. My name is Layla. I'm 34 years old. And until 8 months ago, I thought my marriage was solid. Not perfect, no marriage is, but solid. The kind built on 10 years of shared dinners, late-night conversations, and the quiet comfort of knowing someone is yours and you are theirs. Then she came into our lives. Her name was Mara. 28, creative director at the agency where my husband Daniel worked. He mentioned her casually one evening over pasta. "Oh, Mara handled the campaign. She's brilliant, the way you'd mention a colleague." Nothing more. I smiled, asked a polite question, and moved on. But something sat wrong with me. Small things. The way his phone suddenly faced down on the table. The way a certain kind of laugh, lighter, younger somehow, occasionally slipped out when he talked about work. The way he started caring about what shirt he wore on Thursdays. I told myself I was being insecure. Paranoid. The kind of wife I never wanted to be. So I trusted him. "She's just a friend, Layla. You'd actually really like her." He said it so easily. So cleanly. No hesitation. No crack in the voice. And I believed him, because that's what you do when you love someone. You choose to believe them even when something deep in your chest is whispering that the story doesn't quite add up. That was a Friday. By Saturday night, I wasn't just questioning my marriage. I was questioning every memory I thought was real. I had driven to his office to surprise him with dinner, takeout from the Thai place he loved. The parking lot was nearly empty. But his car was still there. And so was hers. The light in the window told me everything words never would that I didn't move for what felt like a full minute. My fingers were still wrapped around the takeout bag. The warm plastic handle. The smell of lemongrass and coconut drifting up around me like nothing was wrong. Like the world hadn't just tilted sideways on its axis. I told myself there was an explanation. Colleagues work late. People stand close. It means nothing. I got back in my car. I didn't go inside. Daniel and I met when we were both 24. A mutual friend's rooftop party, summer, the kind of night where the city feels alive and anything feels possible. He was standing near the railing with a drink he wasn't finishing, looking out at the skyline like he was thinking about something important. I walked over, not because I was bold, but because something about his stillness pulled me in. We talked until everyone else had gone home. By the third date, I knew. Not the butterflies kind of knowing, something quieter and deeper than that. The kind where you look at a person across the table and think, "Oh, it's you." We built something real. A small apartment that slowly became a home. A rescue dog named Fig. Sunday routines and grocery lists and the particular way he'd rest his chin on top of my head when he hugged me from behind. For 10 years, that was my life. And I loved it. I had met Mara exactly once, a work event Daniel had brought me to 3 months earlier. She was warm, effortlessly put together, the kind of woman who makes eye contact when she listens like you're the only person in the room. She had shaken my hand and smiled and said, "Daniel talks about you all the time." I had smiled back. Now, sitting in that dark parking lot, I kept replaying the way she'd said his name that night. Daniel. First name. Soft. Familiar. The way you say a name when it lives comfortably in your mouth. I watched the window. The silhouettes hadn't moved apart. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text from Daniel. "Working late tonight, don't wait up. Love you." I looked at the message. Then back at the window. Then back at the message. He was in that building, right now, texting me that he loved me. And she was standing close enough to touch him that I drove home on autopilot. Set the takeout on the kitchen counter. Fed Fig. Poured myself a glass of wine I didn't finish. Sat on the edge of our bed, my side, always the left, and stared at the wall until the numbers on the clock stopped meaning anything. Daniel came home at 11:47. I know because I watched the ceiling the entire time, counting the minutes like they were evidence. He smelled like the office, paper and cold air and his own cologne, and he kissed my temple in the dark like he always did, like nothing had shifted, like the ground beneath our marriage was still solid. You sleep, he whispered. Almost, I lied. The thing nobody tells you about suspicion is how exhausting it is to carry alone. It doesn't arrive like a storm. It arrives like a slow leak, barely noticeable at first, until one morning you realize everything around you is quietly soaked through. I started paying attention differently. I noticed that Mara's name had a particular pattern in Daniel's stories. She was always just relevant enough to mention, but never the focus. A carefully managed presence. The way you keep something close without putting it on display. I noticed that he had started going to the gym on Tuesday evenings. Daniel, who once called treadmills a form of punishment, was suddenly committed to Tuesday evenings. I checked his gym app once, the one that tracks check-ins. No activity on Tuesdays. 3 weeks after the parking lot, my friend Sarah came over for dinner. Sarah, who had known Daniel since before I did, who had been my maid of honor, who had a sharp instinct for people that I'd always trusted more than my own. I didn't tell her everything. I told her enough. She set down her fork slowly. Layla, she said. The way she said it, careful, waited, told me she wasn't surprised. What? At the holiday party last year. She paused. Looked at her plate. I saw them talking by the bar. For a long time. I didn't think much of it then. But the way he looked at her. She stopped herself. Sarah. It was the way he used to look at you. The wine glass in my hand felt suddenly very heavy. And somewhere across the city, my husband's phone lit up with a message I would never see. That I want to tell you that Sarah's words rolled off me. That I finished my wine, laughed it off, and went to bed with a clear conscience and a quiet mind. But that would make me a liar. And I've had enough of those in my life recently. Her words didn't roll off. They landed. Deep and heavy, the way truth always does when it's been waiting too long to be spoken. I replayed them the entire night, the way he used to look at you, until the sentence stopped being words and became something closer to a wound. The following week, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through his phone. Not frantically, not the way you see in movies, hands shaking, tears streaming. I was eerily calm. The kind of calm that only comes when part of you already knows what you're going to find and has quietly prepared itself. The messages with Mara were still there. Hundreds of them. Most were ordinary enough on the surface, work talk, shared links, inside jokes about colleagues. But it was the texture of them that stopped my breath. The easy rhythm. The way they finished each other's thoughts. The way she'd send something small and meaningless at 11 p.m. and he'd respond within seconds, this man who took 40 minutes to reply to my grocery list. And then, near the bottom of a thread from 6 weeks ago, one message. From her. Last night was different. You felt it too. Don't pretend you didn't. He had read it. He had not replied. But he had not deleted it either. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. I walked to the bathroom, ran cold water over my wrists, and looked at myself in the mirror for a long time. The woman looking back at me wasn't broken, not yet. But she was standing right at the edge of something. A before and after. The last few seconds of a life that still made sense. That weekend, Daniel told me the agency was hosting a dinner. A client event. He'd be back by 10. He asked, almost too casually, if I'd be okay on my own. Something in the way he asked it made my skin tighten. I said yes. Then I called Sarah. Then I put on my coat that I told myself I was only going to watch. That was the agreement I made with myself in the car, Sarah in the passenger seat, her hand resting on the dashboard, neither of us speaking as the city lights slid past the windows like something melting. I wasn't going to confront anyone. I wasn't going to cause a scene. I was simply going to see. To know. To give myself the one thing Daniel had been quietly stealing from me for months. The truth. The restaurant was a sleek, dimly lit place downtown, the kind with leather booths and low jazz and candles that make everyone look more beautiful than they are. Daniel had mentioned the name once before, offhandedly. I had remembered it the way you remember small things when your instincts are quietly archiving evidence. Sarah spotted them first. A corner booth. Partially hidden by a curved partition, private enough to feel intentional. Daniel in a jacket I hadn't seen before, dark, fitted. And Mara across from him, leaning forward, one hand resting on the table close to his. Not touching. But close. The kind of close that has already made its decision and is simply waiting for permission. I watched my husband laugh at something she said. Not his polite laugh. Not his social laugh. His real laugh. The one I hadn't heard in months. Sarah touched my arm gently. Layla. Don't. But I was already stepping inside. I want to be clear, I didn't approach them. Something stopped me 4 steps through the door. Not fear. Not weakness. Him. A man standing near the host station, speaking quietly to the manager. Tall, early 40s, dark eyes that moved to me the moment I walked in, the kind of attention that registers before you've decided whether you want it. He smiled. Uncertain but warm. You look like you're either very lost or very certain. Which is it? I blinked. I don't know yet. He tilted his head slightly, something shifting in his expression, curiosity tipping into interest. Difficult night? You could say that. His name was Nico. He was a friend of the restaurant owner. He offered me a drink at the bar with the easy confidence of someone who never needed to try too hard, and something inside me, tired, hollowed out, starving for someone to simply see me, almost said yes before my brain caught up with my heart. And that terrified me more than anything I'd seen in that corner booth. Because Daniel had made his choice slowly, quietly, over hundreds of small moments I hadn't noticed. And here I was, raw, wounded, and suddenly understanding, for the very first time, exactly how that happens. How you don't fall all at once. How it starts with a difficult night and a warm smile and someone asking if you're okay. I turned back toward Sarah. But the booth in the corner was empty now. Daniel's jacket was gone. Mara's chair pushed back at an angle, like they'd left in a hurry. Or like they'd seen me first. My phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up. Silence, and then Daniel's voice, low and strange and stripped of everything familiar. Layla. We need to talk. Tonight. Don't come home yet. The call ended before I could speak. And Nico, still standing beside me, said quietly, whatever just happened, you don't have to face it alone. I looked at this stranger. This warm, steady, completely unknown stranger. And for one long, dangerous moment, I wanted to believe him that I didn't go home. Not immediately. I stood outside that restaurant for 3 full minutes, cold air pressing against my face, Sarah's hand in mine, Daniel's words looping through my head like a song with a broken ending. We need to talk. Don't come home yet. 10 years. A rescue dog named Fig. The left side of the bed. Sunday grocery lists. A man who once looked at me like I was the only thing worth looking at in a crowded room. And now, a phone call in the dark telling me to wait. I went home anyway. He was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in. Jacket off. Hands folded. The particular stillness of a man who has rehearsed something and is now terrified to begin. Mara was not there. But her absence felt louder than anything she could have said. Daniel looked at me, really looked at me, and something in his face collapsed quietly, the way old buildings come down. Not all at once. Just everything giving way at the same moment. I ended it, he said. Tonight. Before you called. I ended it. The room was very still. How long? I said. Not a question. A threshold. He closed his eyes. 7 months. 7 months. 28 weeks of Tuesday evenings and late texts and a laugh I didn't recognize anymore. 7 months of she's just a friend delivered with perfect, practiced calm over pasta and morning coffee and temple kisses in the dark. I had expected rage to come. Instead, what came was something quieter and more devastating: grief. The clean, certain grief of losing something that you finally understand has been gone for a long time. I sat down across from him. We talked until 3 a.m. Raw, ugly, honest in the way we hadn't been in years. He wept. I didn't. I had spent my tears somewhere on the drive home, somewhere between the restaurant and the life I was trying to decide if I still wanted. And then he said something I never expected. She's not the reason we broke, Layla. We both know that. I looked at him across the table. And the most terrifying part was that he was right. But what Daniel didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that while he was sitting at that table preparing his confession, I had already received something that changed everything all over again. A photograph. Sent from an unknown number. Of Daniel and Mara. Dated last night, the photograph was real. I knew it before I even had it verified. Something in the timestamp, the angle, the particular way Daniel's hand rested on the small of her back, a gesture so familiar it felt like reading a sentence in my own handwriting. Last night. While I was lying in our bed staring at the ceiling, counting minutes like evidence. I showed him. I slid the phone across the kitchen table without a word and watched his face do something I had never seen it do before: crumble without defense. No explanation assembled itself. No careful sentence arrived to smooth the edges. Just a man, exposed completely, with nothing left to hide behind. He had lied about ending it. Or perhaps he had meant to end it and hadn't yet. Perhaps the truth lived somewhere in between, which, I realized, was exactly where our marriage had been living for a long time. I asked him to leave that night. Quietly. Without drama. The way you close a book you've finally finished. He took Fig, our dog, his idea originally, and I let him, because some goodbyes need something warm and living attached to them to make it out the door. I stood at the window and watched his car disappear down the street. And then, for the first time in months, I exhaled. That was 8 months ago. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks back. Sarah was there. We had terrible wine and very good pasta and laughed more than I expected to, the way women do when they survived something together. I still sleep on the left side of the bed. Old habits are honest that way. Nico texted once, just to check in, the way he said he would. I didn't respond immediately. But I didn't delete it either. Some doors don't need to be slammed. Some just need to stay quietly closed until you're ready to decide what lives on the other side. What I know now, 8 months and one whole life later, is this. Betrayal breaks you open. And what grows in that space, if you let it, is something no one else can plant for you. Clarity. Softness. The particular courage of a woman who finally chose herself. I am not the woman who sat in that parking lot anymore. I am something better. Something mine.